A historic moment in Takeline history, as 40% of Filipinos in sports media are appearing on this podcast now, that Pablo Torre, host of the excellent ESPN Daily and an Around the Horn NPTI contributor, joins us. He is my mom's favorite Filipino sports personality, Philab sports personality, and he's here to help us take a look at the Super Bowl, what it was like in the SoFi spaceship. Can you dive into the lake outside SoFi without getting arrested? We're going to find out all of that and more. Pablo, welcome to Takeline.
Thank you, Renee. Jason told me this in person, that I'm his mom's favorite Filipino-American sports media personality, and I did not believe him then. Over time, I've gaslit myself into believing that that's actually a fact. So it's an honor to join both of you.
I wouldn't put it past Mama Concepcion. We know that she already has Tiger Woods. We know that Jason keeps moving down the totem pole.
I keep asking her to come visit me in LA. I mean, you gonna come, right? And then she's like, "Yeah, I'm going to Carmel this summer." Okay, and then you're gonna come down to LA? Yeah, I think I'm going over to San Francisco a little bit. And you come down to LA? What? She just.
So there's that.
As someone who spent a day of my week in LA going whale watching, leaving Los Angeles to go commune with nature in the way that your mom may be interested in if she goes to the Carmel area, Big Sur, adjacent, I'm with it, man.
That's crazy.
Her favorite spot in LA is Catalina. That is her. She loves Catalina.
Just love to take a boat out there and, be in the presence of some nice wine. I get it.
Pablo, what is it? What was the vibe like for you in the beautiful SoFi Stadium and initial takeaways from the Super Bowl?
So I want to be 100% journalistically transparent with you guys because I am a journalist. I left before the game. So this is what I did.
Wow.
I'm a vet. And you know what? I'm going to throw some people out there because you may think, wait a minute, I no longer want to listen to this guy because he's not actually in the building. That is not true. That is not true. You should listen to me even more now because I'm a veteran. I ran into Adam Schefter over the week and I was like, hey man, what's your plan? And he's like, I'm going to watch the Super Bowl on an airplane. I'm getting out before the game starts. Nobody stays around. You're a chump if you stay around. I went to the Super Bowl in Atlanta when the Rams lost to the Patriots 13-3. Shout out to Atlanta, Renee. Yes, absolutely. Loved it, except for the fact that I was at the game. The game sucked. And I was like, oh, I miss commercials now.
Oh, and so, yes.
I need to inject all of these crypto commercials into my eyeballs. And I couldn't do that if I was at the game. But what I did do was spend the whole week there talking to people who were going to the game, doing stuff around the game itself. And what I can tell you, and this was borne out by the broadcast, is how comical it is, Jason, and you surely know this, that this was a Bengals-dominated building, except for all of the luxury suites wherein, I don't know, the most followed people on social media were all, hobnobbing.
What?
Yeah.
I was down at Manhattan Beach on Saturday just hanging out, and it was a parade of hoodays. Hooday, everywhere. Hooday, just yelling across the street at each other. Hooday!
Yes, which was jarring for Hootie, or as he is otherwise known by his real name. Very confusing. Darius Rucker was like, oh no, this is a different thing. But he was around, apparently.
So you mean to tell me that it wasn't so much a home court advantage as people... Listen, on the outside in, I'm shocked. I'm legit sitting
Renee,
right here, shocked.
You are, Jason, I feel like there's a real, you come from a sports town. Atlanta, has a different relationship than I feel like LA does with its teams.
Oh.
Yeah, LA is a interesting pro football market in that there's been so much upheaval and moving around and leaving and returning and coming back and threatening to leave, that really the football culture here is all about USC and UCLA, and so it's been a joke about how excited the fan base here is about the Rams being in the Super Bowl. But I think the perfect measure of exactly how excited LA was about the Rams was when the fireworks went off. It was very brief. After the win, it was 3 or 4 explosions, and that's it.
What? We actually talked about how quiet it was in the stadium in general. So this is very, very interesting to me. I'm also curious, since you say that, how do you think that the Houday fans paid for this? Like, has anybody seen the prices of these tickets? I thought that it had to be LA people, because aren't y'all the ones that know how to make a lot of money from nothing, even if you don't have it, and spend it?
Yeah, I feel like the Cincinnati grift is less developed than the LA grift, where I don't know if in Cincinnati there are lots of people with projects in development. I don't know if that's necessarily a thing they get along the Rust Belt. What I will point out, though, Jason, also, is that Cincinnati, before the game was played, said, we're not having school on Monday. We're not having school the day after. So I just feel like there's a lot of all in. People talk about the Rams going all in. Just the municipal infrastructure of Cincinnati was basically counting on this going well for them. And I feel like it's probably pretty bad right now.
Wow.
Let's talk about that all in, because the Rams notably went all in with a variety of moves headlined by the acquisition of Matthew Stafford. One thing it's been notable in sports in general over the last few years is the amount of copycatting going on within teams, talking about strategy for team building, and also when they're in the position to win and potentially maximize a window. You're seeing a lot of tanking is a thing that happens across sports now. And just like in the NBA with the building of super teams, when a team feels they're close in the NFL, they will mortgage everything to try and win it that year or the next. Is that something you're seeing too, Pablo?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by how the NFL and its copycat leagueness, and I feel like a copycat by using the phrase copycat league because it is a cliche, but also accurate. Everyone's cheating off each other's homework, honestly. But the thing about what the Rams did was, on the one hand, yes, they absolutely did what has been reported. They basically took the global warming approach to building a football team. You future generations deal with this, right? The problems in the cap sheet. You're not going to have the right players. Yes, no, there is the oceans are going to rise and the Rams will have a reckoning. But right now, they all loaded into their giant Hummer and said, we're winning a Super Bowl. And that much is true. They went all in ways that we rarely see in terms of just sending away first round picks, selling the future to buy pleasure, maximum pleasure in the present. On the other hand, though, watching the game, watching the Super Bowl, what was so funny about it is that the guy who should have won MVP, if I can just start spouting takes here.
I love it.
It's not Cooper Kupp, although Cooper Kupp had one of the greatest seasons by a wide receiver we've ever seen. It's Aaron Donald. It's the guy who might be the best at his position that we've ever seen, certainly of that body type. And what's funny about that is that Aaron Donald was himself a first-round pick, right? A guy who supposedly this whole plan of sell away all your first-rounders defies, and also he was drafted by the previous regime. And I love nothing more than a new fancy operation getting credit for what the last guys did who were ousted, and then reframing all of this as, look at us, we're zagging while everyone else is zigging. And meanwhile, here's Aaron Donald being like, I'm doing all of this work and no one is calling me the future of team building.
Takeline is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the best and easiest way to play fantasy sports. With their slick mobile app and user-friendly website, you'll have no problem jumping in, lifting your leg, and drafting your squad. Try the Pick'em games. You can win up to 20 times, 20x. A dog's years is 7 years to one human. Underdog Fantasy is 20 times your money, potentially, that you could win in one night. Pick over under on your favorite players' stats to win big games. Pick between 2 and 5 players. And you can also pick from rivals, which pits 2 players against each other. Some great love-hate dynamic possible there. Sign up now with code TAKELINE, and you will double your first deposit up to $100 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit of $10 or more. Deposit $100, get $100 free. Why don't you play today?
There's been a lot of talk swirling around about, is he going to retire? Is he not? Potentially. Again, he doesn't have... This is a weird statement, but there isn't anything else that he has to prove or achieve. So there's not really much to bring him back other than to just start stacking the rings. But he was very adamant about showing people he just needs a ring. He wasn't tapping multiple fingers. He was tapping one. I just need a ring. So do you have any any news, any insight about the seriousness to take about him maybe not coming back next year?
So I consult smart people like Bill Barnwell for all of the substance of these football questions you're asking me. What I bring you though personally is insanely irresponsible psychoanalysis and watching Aaron Donald post-game get asked immediately about these plans to retire, and his response is,
I'm in a moment. I'm going to just enjoy this right now with these guys. When my kids come on the field, this is the promise I made to my daughter when she was 5. So we're going to play in the confetti for a minute, man. And I'm just going to live in the moment. So
all lead me to think, oh, he's gone. Like, he is not going to be back playing football again, which is wild at age 30. Right? And that's the other part of this whole Super Bowl, which I found unique beyond, like, how did the Rams build their team? It's the fact that everything, like, leading up to this game ended up being about, like, key, super important people suddenly retiring after it.
Yeah.
You know, like, Aaron Donald was out. Eric Weddle.
But Sean
Andrew
McVay
Whitworth.
is coming back, actually.
Well, Sean McVay is coming back, but we should talk about Sean McVay because that dude, a master strategist, boy genius, who honestly in this game, another hot take, like was just running Cam Akers into a wall repeatedly for reasons that were just mystifying.
That's something I'd love to talk about. So Sean McVay, in a lot of ways, embodies like the ultimate victory of analytics and quant shit, you know, to become a coach at age 30.
A boy genius.
It's like an Instagram fitness influencer somehow like became like an NFL head coach and
He's
is
buff.
You know, has the brand of like smartest guy in the room. He will go where the numbers takes him. He will take big swings. Was there like some kind of like grander strategy to the running game? Like what?
So I asked this question almost exactly, like, because I had the same thing of like, wait a minute, why is this quantitatively minded genius doing something that seems very stupid? And what Bill Barnwell pointed out, because I was like, oh, certainly I'm not getting something about this. What Bill told me and he explained was just like, oh, this is just kind of like when a nerd fails a test on purpose to prove he has credibility with jocks. And I'm like, oh,
what?
If that's actually what happened, that makes a lot more sense. I think the reality of it is somewhere between that and the fact that he has this like delusional commitment to the principle of running the ball. And he just wants to be that guy. He wants to be run the ball guy, even though like his genius would lead you to believe via branding that he has far more creative ideas. But the thing about the branding is what I find so funny about this, because this guy who is a master strategist, allegedly, takes the opportunity to take, you know, the platform at America's most watched cultural event. And he's basically like, I might not do this for a while longer. Like, I might be done. And people
I might go to TV.
What?
I'm good looking.
Yeah, but the TV, Instagram influencer stuff, like, I'm sure you guys, Renee, you're now doing, like, media full-time and all. I mean, you're doing a million things, but, like, media is such a huge part of what you do.
Yep.
There is this insane and hilarious obsession and appreciation that, like, billionaire owners, let alone GMs, have for people on their TV. Maybe you've heard about this subplot in something called American Politics at some point.
Yeah.
But the fact is, you go on ESPN or wherever, and you become a suit, and suddenly, like, it's, to borrow a Star Wars thing, it's like the Bacta tank. Like, you can rehab whatever you want. Like, you are suddenly a guy with authority and credibility, even if you just did something terrible. Like, it's crazy how often that way station seems to produce hires just because you're on television, which, again, full disclosure, like, I don't know, a lot of people are on television, guys. They're really not impressed by it at this point.
You know, it's funny because you talked about culture and television, and the halftime show is something that I am especially interested in year in and year out. This year was about as Hollywood as it can get, in a sense of star-studded, not just even the show, but the people that came to see the show. You weren't there in person. I was going to ask you what it was like there live, but you just let us know that you left. But what was your biggest takeaway from the performance? And do you know how long they held 50 Cent upside down? I just want to know. Like, do you know?
Yes. So my first take on the halftime show is how mad I would have been if I was in person. Because you saw how they did it. Like, there was something, I don't know if I would have seen an upside down 50 Cent reenacting the Spider-Man kiss scene with no one there to kiss
You
it.
know what?
Like, I would have been mad, but then I did because I'm a journalist again. I sought out, like, the video from the crowd cam and found that, like, they basically had him jerry-rigged so that as soon as Dre and Snoop finished right on top on that roof of this, like, house set that they had built, he came down. So as much as I would have liked to think that 50 Cent was there, like, truly, I don't know, doing crunches for a long-ass time, it's even sadder, the reality. It's just like, oh, no.
G-Unit! Okay.
How did you guys feel about 50 in that? Because I intuitively was concerned.
I was truly concerned. It's one thing to hang upside down for that long. It's another thing to rap, to have to use your lungs in a way that sounds confident and strong. I'm not sure that I'd be able to generate the power necessary. And he managed to do it. And then there's you could pop a blood vessel. Like, I sound like an old, like my grandma now, but I feel like you could get injured like this. Yeah. It was definitely can we just not have him in the house? Can he just impressive. Just have him somewhere else in the house? Like, he comes out of the basement or something? Like, he didn't need to do this.
It's an old throwback. You know, he wore the G-Unit tank. He went all in. That's what I love the most. They went all in.
Have him on a treadmill, like open another part of the house, and there's the treadmill from the video, and he's got the oxygen mask. He doesn't need to be hanging upside down. I'm just pitching stuff. It's too late now. I'm just saying.
It's too late now.
I do love that there is a music video scene that we could have borrowed from in which a literal oxygen tank was actually part of the plot. Like, it's a giant oversight. Yeah, they picked the wrong version.
The dramatic effect, we're talking about it. Have y'all missed the whole point in marketing here? We might not have been talking about it right now if it was just true. A treadmill.
That's very true. Finally, Pablo, it's been a wild season in the NFL, and I think especially a wild last several weeks. The postseason, purely from the standpoint of the games, has arguably been the best ever. Been the greatest. This is as good as it's ever been in the NFL. But there are also any number of other issues, such as the paucity of black coaches in the NFL, John Gruden stepping down, et cetera, the Washington football team / Commanders ongoing lawsuit, various other things. What is your takeaway from the NFL season with this really uniquely NFL mix of good and bad?
Yeah, no, it's to me, this NFL season just proved how unstoppable the NFL is. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I wish, and by the way, like, you know, it's funny, at some point there was like a very brief concussion subplot where it was like, oh, do we care about this again? Oh, no, we don't. No, we don't. And that seemed to be the existential threat to the league, to the business. It seemed at one point like domestic violence scandals would also disrupt the business. Certainly kneeling, the anthem stuff, politics, quote unquote, invading sports was supposed to threaten the business by virtue of going woke and going broke. Unfortunately, all parties involved have to basically admit, like, you can't stop this thing. I mean, we live in such a deeply fractured media economy. No one watches anything together anymore. No one watches the same stuff at all, with very few exceptions. And the NFL is the number one exception that proves the rule. I mean, it's more popular than ever. I expect it will be forever. I think there's something about the fact that, yes, the postseason was a clinic, honestly, in just how when incompetence happens, it's still incredible entertainment in professional football. Like, some of these games were both brilliantly played. Other ones, like the Cowboys-Niners game I think of, for instance, just like total mismanagement of resources and time. And somehow, because it's close, it is admittedly awesome. And if that's the game, if that is the grift the NFL has going, even when we're bad, we're even better. I just don't know how you bet against the thing that sits astride our entire culture at this point.
Wow. His name is Pablo, but if you're Mama Concepcion, his name is my favorite. He's the host of ESPN Daily and Around the Horn and PTI contributor. Pablo, thank you so much for joining us on Takeline.
I'm a fan of both you guys. Thank you, and salamat to Jason's mom.
Yeah.